那个活动呢，它的 title 呢是叫做 Sophie Lecture Series at Queen's。那实际上是由我们公司就是 Sophie 出资赞助的1年2次的一个我们叫皇后大学的国际大师讲坛。那么在这个讲坛当中呢，我们会就是以学校的名义就是邀请这个全世界比较顶级的这个英语语言文学类的这个学者来给我们讲课。其实讲的课呢，也就是他们最新的一些研究成果。来讲它的意义呢，就是我觉得是我对于我在 Queen's 上学的这段经历的一种回馈就是我觉得在这个过程当中，我认知到了许多我之前生命当中不曾认知到的东西，我也不知道是什么，但是我觉得它给我生命带来巨大的能量，所以我希望用某种方式回馈它，这就是我的初衷。那么17号来的这一位教授呢，来自美国芝加哥，就是这个香槟分校叫 Walter Michaels 的这个教授来给我们讲课。他是其实他在这个 John Hopkins 就是当了很长时间的教授，然后可能比如说在 Harvard、Cornell， 包括以色列的这个特拉维夫大学，他都有做过这个 visiting scholar。然后后来可能因为家庭原因，他去到了这个 Illinois， 就是我们说的这个香槟分校。后来我发现，就是在他的学术追求的这个过程当中，我觉得跟他后期对于这个教育公平性的这一块的研究有比较大的关系，因为他自己的 background 和他教育的 background 其实都是在这种比较精英的私立学校或者是私立大学里面完成的。我觉得他可能已经看透了那个世界的规则，而到后期当他开始思考公平性的时候，他必须要换一个世界来看待，所以他最终选择的是一个公立大学。所以我们在那个会后呢，也做了一个专门的一个采访那这个采访呢，是我和我们2个人就这个教育这个大的背景吧，来谈谈我们是如何从教育当中成长我们的这个个人背景在教育当中的成长发展，以及对教育的一些思考，尤其是现代教育的一些思考。
Actually, tell me that why, I mean, I know that you're doing me, but I can do you too. Why do you think that your upbringing suited you for what you do?
Of course, for what I do, I need to have a very good education background, right, to start with. And because of this level of education background, it becomes part of myself in a way that it has to be ongoing, lifelong learning in a way. So then I would have to be a model myself to be able to talk with all those people through my own experience.
But when you started school, did you come to college with a sense that this is what you wanted to do and you need to train for it? Because a lot of kids do come to college like that now. Or did you come to college and sort of start being an English major because you thought, no, I really like reading these books?
For me, I thought, as much as I can remember, I did go to university.
It hasn't been that long. Seriously,
it's still a bit while ago, more than 15 years ago actually. Yeah. So I think I remember all the way that I want to become a teacher.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, that's very clear in my mind, and I always want to. I love reading, writing, and just read books. That's very clear since I was a very young girl, and I just didn't like loud plays. I didn't want to be with loud people. I just want to sit there and read. A very strange person in many people's eyes for a long time.
Yeah. But the thing about it is that so college gives you a chance. I mean, if you're sort of free in that way, the university gave you a chance to sit in a room and read.
Yes.
And also talk to other people who also like to sit in rooms and read. And then talk to professors who really like to sit in rooms and read.
I guess that was the case.
But then that actually was the thing that led to you actually being able to be successful in your profession.
Absolutely. I think absolutely. I think except for books, which is the foundation of what I do or who I am, I think I have very clear goals to what I want to achieve. What I want to achieve now, what I want to achieve in 1 or 2 months, what I want to achieve in 1 or 2 years. I have all this very clearly planned in my mind since a very young age, and nobody told me what to do.
I just have those voices and then I follow them and I try to execute them in a way that I would feel satisfied at least.
So the thing about it is that, that's really entrepreneurial. That's how you get entrepreneurs. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm just saying that's what it is. I was, in a way, the exact opposite. I never was good at having goals, but I was like seriously interested in, just as you were, in reading and writing. I always liked to write. I like to discuss. And for me, the university worked almost in the opposite way. It gave me the chance to do what I wanted to do, but it provided me with goals that I didn't know I had. So first graduating, but that's like a straightforward one. But then you have to get, if you think, well, I want to keep on doing this, you have to get an MA, then you have to get a PhD. Then if you want to keep on doing it, you have to get a job, someone paid to do it. Then if you get a job, you have to be promoted to tenure, then you have to do this. So in a way, I'm like the least entrepreneurial person in the world. If I were left alone in a capitalist economy and there were no professors, I'd be like starving in the streets. So there's a way in which, for me, the university provided a structure, but I think that's an attractive thing. It provided a structure in which somebody like me who wanted to think about, literature and then think about photography and then started thinking about politics as well, a structure in which you could do it. So the kind of almost the bureaucracy of the university can be super useful. So you got exactly the opposite. You don't want the bureaucracy.
他一开始就是很随性的问了我关于比如说我的教育背景啊、成长背景的一些问题，然后我也就很诚实的回答他，但是后来发现，当他得到了这个他想要的答案之后呢，其实上我们的整个对话就掉入了一个环境造人，和精神追求这样的一个对话的框架当中。
I think it's hard to answer all this across the board. I have a former student he's a novelist, but also he teaches in the Chicago public school system. And he feels very strongly that he loves teaching. He loves teaching like 11th and 12th graders. But he feels very strongly that it's not exactly, I don't think he would say dumbed down, but that the idea of reading some significant work of literature, spending a lot of time with it and trying to understand it, that has been pushed aside. So that a question that's always asked is, what is the kids, how is this relevant to the kids? So if you live on the west side of Chicago and you live in a poor neighborhood and maybe a poor black neighborhood, how is reading The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, written in 1851 or whatever it is, relevant to your life? So I've always thought that the goal of education should be at that level, not to try to demonstrate its relevance to people's lives, but to actually give people a chance to think about this and they can decide for themselves whether it's relevant to their lives. To give people a chance sometimes to think about things that are not directly relevant to your lives. I mean, I came from a more privileged background, but it's not as if 1851 Nathaniel Hawthorne was relevant to my life. I don't live in a Puritan community. Like, I'm not going out with some girl who committed adultery. I'm like not in that situation. But the point of that is that there's a certain kind of freedom in being able to spend time with a text like that. So I do think that the motives have been largely good, but I think that the sense that you have to integrate students' lives with their study is maybe a mistake. And you want to, in fact, maybe keep students' lives and their study a little bit more separate. And you want to give them the sense that no, study is an access to an intellectual world that maybe you don't have at home. That maybe you don't have, hanging out with your friends. But that you can make new friends, you can make new things out of that. But that there's something separate, and that's an attraction to it.
他觉得心中这个理想教育的一个样子，which is 就是要实现人的这种精神自由，然后在精神自由的过程当中，其实人可以为自己选择一种理想的生活状态。
I know for me, when I first read Samuel Beckett, it's hard to read, right? In 11th grade, that was not my life. I was like, whoa, what is that? And that was very eye-opening for me.
I don't think people still read that in grade 11.
I wasn't reading it.
Kids don't read it anymore.
I was reading because a friend of mine who was a year older loved it. And he said, Walter, you should read this. And I read it. And he was right. But it was like, I didn't understand it. I just thought it was really interesting. You know, T.S. Eliot famously claimed that when he first read Dante's Divine Comedy, he read it in Italian. They didn't really speak Italian. So he's reading a poem in a language he doesn't really know. But he claims, I'm sure he's exaggerating, he says, I couldn't understand almost any of it, but I knew it was really, really great. Okay. So when you feel that little bit about it being really, really great, that's like a prompt to you. Just figure out what is it about this that I like. So in Eliot's case, what's the first step? Actually learn Italian would be helpful. So you learn Italian. You start actually reading. Yeah, for sure. Oh, okay. You want to read the Compendium. Or, you know, for someone like me, I have a little bit of Italian, but you just buy one of those books where you get them online, where it's the Italian on the left-hand page and the English translation on the right-hand page, and you work through it. And it's like, it's exciting, right? Because it's something that, I mean, nothing could be less my world than Italian Catholicism in the 12th century. But it's a powerful experience. So to me, again, that's part of what's lost, you know, part of what we don't do.
就是我觉得这个是我们真的一个对话高潮，因为就是我听到之后，我也挺惊讶的啊，就是他其实说了2件事情。第一件事情呢，他举了一个例子啊，这个他用的这个例子呢是美国的大诗人叫 T.S. Eliot， 然后他说就是 T.S. Eliot 呢在自己小的时候看这个但丁神曲的时候，他其实完全看不懂的，因为他就是 T.S. Eliot 第一遍看的但丁的神曲呢是意大利的原版，意大利文的原版，所以他当时呢他不认得意大利文，所以他不知道那个神曲讲了些什么东西。但是呢，在这个情况下，他依然觉得这是一个神作，然后就爱上了他。啊，这是他讲的第一个例子。第二个呢，他讲了他自己的一个例子，就是关于这个 Robert Frost， 啊，然后这个 Robert Frost 呢，其实是大家知道美国一个非常知名的这种家喻户晓的诗人，我觉得可能有点相当于我们这儿的李白谈不上有点 too old， 就可能胡适这种的吧，啊，然后。他说他小的时候呢，就是每天上学都要背 Robert Frost， 然后他觉得特别无聊，啊，直到他大概到40多岁左右的时候，他可能生了一场大病，然后呢，他在被推到手术室的那个床上的时候，他脑子里想的全部都是 Robert Frost 的，叫做 Nothing Good Can Stay， 啊，所以他当时就突然间明悟了这个文学艺术啊，诗歌给他生活带来的这种价值，就是这种不可替代的，人之为人的这种价值，啊，可能在我们比如说东方的价值观里面，它也符合东方价值观这个诗和远方这样的一种对理想生活的一种不懈追求，但事实上我觉得它不是一个东西方价值观的一个产物或者结论。其实我觉得就是说，可能在他的心中啊，就是说这是对教育，就是全世界或全人类教育的一个理想的追求。
Yeah, you know, when you say the postmodern agenda in education, I'm not 100% sure I know what you mean. I know some examples of what you mean, and I don't know it as well in sort of K through 12, which obviously you would know better than I would. I think what would be bad about the modern agenda would be what was good about the old racist version of like great books was that they had some set of values that they wanted to teach you. And for a lot of people, it was like a way to refuse those values. You could see that Sophocles didn't really support their values. If you read Sophocles and you read it carefully, it was like a little critical of those values. So I think part of the problem today is that, is that if they don't even let you read like more than 20 pages of native song, and if a lot of what you're writing about it is like how does it relate to your life, you don't really get a sense of what it is that you're either being asked to buy into or being asked to rebel against. So for me, a lot of my education was things to rebel against. You know, this is what you think is good? I don't think that's good. And you know, I mean, like every 17-year-old, 16-year-old at some point just wants to say no, 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 no. And I love saying no, 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 no. But you can really learn saying no, 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 especially if you're saying no, no, no to really important stuff. Then 10 years later, you realize you were an idiot.
他其实观点非常明确，他说的意思呢，就是说现在的教育系统2个主要的问题，第一个呢是不看所谓的经典，对吧？第二个呢就是这个作品， 不看完，他其实说的是这个意思，就是什么呢？就是你一个作品，它比如现在的就是说教育体系，它可能可以允许你只看10页20页，啊。然后这个10页20页呢，还不一定是什么东西，对吧？其实就2点嘛，第一个是看什么和看多少嘛，对吧？那么what 就是从内容角度上讲，就是现在教育不看经典嘛。然后第二个呢，就是从how much 的角度上讲，就是看不完或者看得少。那实际上他真正就是说想说的呢，就是现代的教育可能在逐渐丧失传统教育当中最核心的一个价值，叫做 arts for art's sake。
And kids like art. You know, people like, there's super complicated hip hop. People like super complicated hip hop. I don't see it. I'm not a hip hop fan, never have been. But the point of it's going to be is that people understand and feel the force of artistry. And what you want to be able to do is make it part of what like literature professors can do, literature teachers can do, English teachers can do, is make that art available to people. Help them see why somebody's trying to do the thing they're trying to do that way. So I do think, and my former teacher thinks he's lost that. He can't do that. The schools won't let him do that. They want him to sort of think about the situation their kids are in. They want him to teach them their own lives. And he sort of wants to teach them things that aren't their own lives, which will then give them maybe a different perspective on their own lives that aren't about them. So that, I think, is a problem. Those things are within a world structured by class. Those are ways of worrying that people, because they're black, or because they're women, or because they're gay, don't have a chance to succeed. We want to make sure everybody has a chance to succeed. Whereas what I'm saying is, no, from the standpoint of socialism, what we want to make it is so that the pressure to succeed is not so dominant. In fact, what everybody has is the chance not even to fail, because there's like a high floor up there. You're not going to be out on the street. You're not going to be marginalized. And so what you want instead is a world in which what people are guaranteed is not the chance to succeed, but the chance actually to live lives that are fulfilling to them. And that goes back to the little girl, like to read books. So it's great when the little girl like to read books grows up to be like a successful entrepreneur. But actually, you'd like it for a little girl likes to read books that sort of think, no, I'm not a successful entrepreneur. I don't even want to be a successful entrepreneur. I still want to read those books. But if I go to my work every day, and my work is like, the example we were talking about yesterday is a healthcare aide, I actually make a reasonable amount of money as a healthcare aide. I don't have to look at the person who runs this company and think, oh my God, I can't do what she does. I can live a life and I've still got the chance to come home and read Jane Austen. Or if I work even in the food industry, if I work in any one of those jobs that I put up on the board as jobs that require no education and are badly paid, but are the fastest growing jobs in our economy. Those jobs need to be made into good jobs. We need a world in which we value those activities as much as we value the things that you and I do, much less as much as we value the things that Elon Musk or whatever, monster bad entrepreneur does. So from that standpoint, my goal has always been to encourage a vision. So I was on a panel once with a guy who was then a school teacher and is now the mayor of the city of Chicago. And he was a very good teacher. And he was talking about the difficulty of teaching in the Chicago school system. And one thing he said was, look, I'm dealing with kids, he's a black guy, he was teaching in a largely black school. And it's hard to convince these kids that they have a chance to succeed. And I really work hard to give them the sense they have a chance to succeed. So my vision was exactly the opposite. What I said to him was, you shouldn't be teaching them that they have a chance to succeed, because mainly they don't. What you should be teaching them is that you don't have a chance to succeed the way this world is ordered. And what your goal should be is to change the world so that vision of success can be altered. And it's one thing to teach people how to escape poverty. It's a totally different thing to try to eliminate poverty. And we are committed, very strongly to the idea that what liberalism requires of us is giving everybody the chance to get to the top. But I think the advantage of thinking about this from a socialist perspective So we think, no, the point is not for everybody to rise. The point is to narrow the difference between rising and not rising. And the point is that the people who don't succeed can actually make a world in which they can live too. Because our views of success are pretty fucking limited. When my mother-in-law was in a nursing home, and you're seeing people who for $29,000 a year are taking care of her, are making sure she doesn't get bed sores, are changing her diaper. She was, in the last few years of her life, she was incontinent. She couldn't get out of bed. And they're getting paid $29,000 a year, and they don't need an education, and they didn't need an education to do that. And I know a whole lot about poetry, and I'm getting paid a couple $100,000 a year to teach poetry. And you live in a world you think, why? Why is what I do more valuable? Now, I don't want what I think what I do is valuable, but a world in which those people are doing what they do is at least as valuable as what I'm doing what I do. There may be fewer of me than there are of them, but that doesn't make me more valuable. Fewer people want me, so you want to say there's a way in which I would rather live in a world where it was my mother-in-law then, it'll be me someday, relatively soon. I'd rather live in a world where that's supported, where the profit motive isn't what governs what goes on in our nursing homes, where actually the desire to take care of these people is what governs what goes on in our nursing homes, and where we work to make those lives better. So if someone says to you, if you don't go to college, you're going to end up as a healthcare aide, the lowest paid job like that, instead of saying, oh my God, I've got to go to college, you can say, I wouldn't mind being a healthcare aide. I like taking care of people, and you pay me a reasonable salary to do it, and I'll do it. So to me, that's like fundamental.
聊到最后，我觉得，就是说，教授他心里的这个，对于理想教育这个宏伟蓝图，其实我觉得在他脑子里是很清晰的，但是呢，他其实也还是深刻的能够认知到这个现实社会的无奈，那么就是说，如果不是所有的人都能够实现这个诗和远方，我觉得可能至少所有的人都可以关注到我们当下的生活但是可能这也就是他觉得略伤感悲哀的一点，就是说现代当代的教育可能真的是逐渐在把人变成一个一个这个我们叫精致的现实主义者。就像他在最后有举一个例子，他说贫穷这件事情，我们应该是教人们脱贫，还是去消除这个社会的贫穷？这是两种完全不同的认知理解，那么它就会带来完全不同的行动方式。教授也没有给我们答案。